you've done calls to wealthy donors, you've done big ticket fundraisers, you've put together a pretty good war chest, I think about $11 million that you had amassed. What does that say about what you were doing before? If this is the right way to do it now, why now and why not before?
So look, I've never actually been in a deeply competitive primary. I get it. Republicans come to the table armed to the teeth. They've got all of their donors, their wealthy donors. They've got their super PACs. They've got their dark money. They got everything going for them. And I'm just going to be blunt. I do not believe in unilateral disarmament. We got to go into these fights, and we got to be willing to win these fights.
So this just applies to the primary. Like, were you to get the nomination, or anyone else to get the nomination, like, just raise all the money you can, however you can.
Yes, but here...
Yes. Raise all the money you can. Now, for the longest time, up before this video aired, Elizabeth Warren had been running with this notion that Sanders and I are one-to-one on this, and I'm not going to be taking money. Sanders is not taking money. We're, for the most part, the same. Yes! Now, when Chris Hayes asked that very specific question, and actually a really good question, well, wait a minute, you were taking all of this money before. There have been reports out that many of these people, even though they haven't necessarily seen you at these events recently, they remember you there like last year or a few months ago. What's changed? Why are you not willing to take it now, but you were willing to take it before? Warren had to explain to Chris Hayes, well, this is just for the primary. Now, the very next question that should have been asked, because when I heard that, I said, oh, she's not being serious. Why do I think she's not being serious? Why did I come to that particular conclusion? Because if the argument that you're making is that there's something inherently wrong and bad about the money itself, I mean, there's something fundamentally problematic with the money, beyond just the optics, that there is a political problem with receiving this cash and being expected to dole out certain favors in order to keep that cash, meaning for that cash to continuously come back to you over and over and over again, that you have to do favors. Meaning nobody's going to give you millions of dollars if you're going to be doing things that are against their own interests, especially their own economic interests. The cash itself has tethers associated with it. It's not free money. These guys are not just giving money because of their strongly held political beliefs that is entirely altruistic. These are investments. That's basically the argument with money in politics. People ask this question about, well, wait a minute, the public is on board for the government running healthcare. The public is on board for expansion of Social Security. The public is even on board for this notion of covering school. So if all of these things are popular, even among Republicans, why don't we have those things? That gets across this idea that politics is not entirely public's will. There are certain things that politicians push. There are other things that they don't push. And for the longest time, we've been captured and controlled, both parties, by cash. Meaning the oligarchs that fund both of the parties, for the most part, have been getting the run of the field regarding the policies that these candidates push and espouse. Just because they say something doesn't necessarily mean it's true, and sometimes there are telltale signals. If Warren indeed, it bites her, where this notion that money influences behavior in the political sphere, and they no longer want to abide by that. And she's going to run a campaign and run a policy that says we're not going to accept that cash in order to get elected. But then you add the caveat, this is only for the primaries. The operative question is, why? Why is it only for the primaries? Why do you believe that you're only going to avoid that cash in the primaries, but the moment that you get out the primaries, incidentally, after all of the other campaigns are out of the race, then you accept the cash? Wouldn't you even fare better accepting that cash in a primary in the sense that it allows you to create a larger structure to receive more grassroots donations? Why are you so particular about not getting it in the primary as opposed to receiving it after? And the point that I would make is because she wants to stand beside Sanders as a one-to-one. The problem here is even this wasn't entirely honest because she took money from her Senate campaign and dumped it into her presidential campaign, money that was made from all sorts of sources. Buttigieg had to be the one to bring that up. Sanders, for whatever reason, did not bring that point up. A very basic point is this was disingenuous. The entire point of this was just to stand beside Sanders as a one-to-one, and then the moment that you get out the primary where she's going against Trump, Well, people aren't going to care as much that you're taking all of this cash, and you've already eliminated your competition. The only reason you would take this particular political casting is that you understand that the public itself has concerns. They worry about that cash. 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash. For all intents and purposes, you have an election system that is run and greased by cold hard dollars. She wanted to effectively get people stuck with a choice. Meaning, if she's saying, I'm not going to take it in the primary, then the face that she's putting forward is of somebody who's not taking that money. But again, the only reason you would take that political designation is because you realize that people have qualms with that cash, but you want to be able to get out of the primary. And the people who had qualms with that cash now give you a pass because now you're running against Trump. Warren started to deviate on this, and eventually, when she was doing extremely well, got to the point of saying, nope, even after the race, even after the primary, I'm not gonna take that cash. I suppose people like me asking questions of saying, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense that you're gonna take it in the general but not in the primary. Well, she tried to rectify that by saying, I'm not gonna take it at all. Now, this idea may work if you're pulling in money in the way that Sanders was pulling in money. If you were pulling in cash, hand over fist, month after month after month after month, then maybe you could pull that off. But keep in mind, Warren's luck ran out. Her campaign collapsed. And when I say collapsed, I mean outright, entirely collapsed. Just so you can see a visual representation of this, this is Real Clear Politics. This brown line is Warren. She's all the way up here. And then look at this, a falling stone, 9.8 meters per second squared, all the way down. She's down to 12.6 from the standpoint of national polling. You can't be 12.6 and still get the same money you were getting beforehand. Basic point. Warren gets on a campaign stage and, of course, says this. And this had a lot of Sanders supporters scratching their heads. Now, I would make the case that this behavior makes all the sense in the world if you're going with the model that I have in my head of why Warren is running. Yes, there may be some agency there, but she is also a creature of the Democratic Party that is in this race to sandbag and eat away support from Sanders. One of the ways she was going to try to do that, again, is to make herself seem as much like Sanders as she possibly could. The campaign finance stuff was one of those ways of doing so. But listen to what she says here. She throws a veiled punch at Sanders. And like I said, a lot of people, lefties, especially lefties that thought these guys were on the same side, were scratching their heads. I never thought that. I wasn't scratching my head. Aggravated, but I wasn't scratching my head. Listen to Warren.
I heard everyone here talking about, as Democrats, we all want to overturn Citizens United because we want to end this unlimited spending. Yeah, except everyone on this stage, except Amy and me, is either a billionaire or is receiving help from PACs that can do unlimited spending. So if you really want to live where you say, then put your money where your mouth is and say no to the PACs. Look, I think the way...
Put your money where your mouth is and say no to the PACs. Now, this is the exact same person who said, I will not unilaterally disarm, making a attack point on this very particular case and using Amy Klobuchar, overtly excluding Sanders from that. And again, Sanders supporters were scratching their head. What the hell is she talking about? She's referring to Our Revolution or something like the Nurses Union. Now, Our Revolution is not technically a super PAC. And let's be very clear, there's a difference between an organization like the Sunrise Movement or Our Revolution or the Nurses Union, as opposed to big dark money groups where millionaires and billionaires are just dumping cash into those groups. But she wants to lump that in, so fair enough. That's the way she's going to go with this, then that's the way she's going to go with this. So imagine my shock. Imagine my shock when the news breaks by Axios that Warren herself has a dark money super PAC that is trying to help her reinvigorate her undead campaign, running ads on Elizabeth Warren's behalf. Now, I have yet to hear her repudiate this particular PAC, and I suspect it's going to go the same way as Joe Biden and Andrew Yang. Both were against PACs. Yang getting his mad PAC saying, what are you going to do? And Joe Biden effectively being broke, requiring those PACs to even keep him from ticking along in Iowa and some of the other states. Now, mind you, Joe Biden still came in, fourth and fifth in those states, a horrible, horrible showing. And Warren wasn't that far behind. So from the standpoint of a group that may have heard her say, I don't necessarily want PACs and all these people should repudiate PACs, they're in the unenviable situation of realizing that Warren is running out of cash, Warren is running out of support, and they need to do something to get her campaign up and running. My curiosity is whether she's going to come out and try to put a knife in this PAC that is backing her, especially with all of the rhetoric she was putting on the campaign stage to attack pretty much everybody on that stage for the exact same thing that she's able to take advantage of right now. Warren gets her dark money super PAC. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. I'm going to go through this video relatively quick because it's getting late in the night. So, new super PAC called Persist PAC. Persist PAC. Now, I suspect they're using the term persist because, again, she has had a fledgling campaign. That campaign has been a falling rock. She's gone from the lead all the way down to 12.6 or something in the national polling average. There are no states that she can conceivably win. At the very least, from the standpoint of when you're looking at her performance and you're looking at the various states, there's no path for victory for her. There's no path for her to even win a state. And yet she's still in this race attacking the guy who has the best chance of winning and to implement the big structural change that she gives lip service to. In this case, the PAC Persist is to some degree trying to, I would imagine, inspire her to keep going, to keep plugging along, to keep eating into Sanders' numbers. Take a look at this. This is Axios. This is the story they're running, and I'm going to show you the ad that these guys are putting out. Sign of the Times, a pro-Warren super PAC. A group of women progressives who back Senator Elizabeth Warren formed Persist PAC, a super PAC airing pro-Warren ads starting Wednesday in an effort to boost her performance ahead of Saturday's crucial Nevada caucuses, a spokesman told Axios. Warren has spoken adamantly against the influence of unlimited spending of dark money in politics, but these supporters have concluded that before Warren can reform the system, she must win with the rules that still exist. And whether she likes it or not, their uncoordinated help may be needed to keep her viable through the week's contest and in South Carolina and in Super Tuesday. Effectively, they're going to try to keep her going. Persist. And
why she'll never stop fighting for you. Elizabeth Warren for president. Persist PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Persist PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising. All right, well, not a horrible ad, but it's not a horrible ad. Look, Warren's problem is very basic, and I'll end the video on this. Why are you here? Why are you here? That's her issue. The issue in that argument that they just made, for the most part, is just Sanders. And if you ask people, who do they trust more on issues of the environment? Who do they trust more on issues of healthcare? Who do they trust more on issues of domestic policy? Across the board, it goes to Sanders. Warren is not trusted on those issues. So her argument of, I'm the one who's going to give big structural change, I'm the one that's going to fight, I'm the one that's going to beat Trump, the public doesn't buy that argument. You can say it as much as you want. You can scream it till you're blue in the face, but ultimately, they're not buying it. She is getting her support eaten away by Buttigieg, especially the white liberal vote. From the standpoint of this kind of other tally that she needs in order to win, meaning a large contingent of Sanders supporters, she's not getting that contingent. That contingent is already, for the most part, solidified around Sanders. So Warren is in this situation of, where am I going to get support from? Hence, the wokeness. meaning the pussy hat wearers. She's gone to this particular area for support because she wasn't necessarily able to garner that support from the standpoint of this kind of domestic economic policy that she was able to do when she was conning people to believe that she was somehow akin to Sanders. And of course, the white liberal vote that just kind of floats between Warren, Buttigieg, Biden, and Klobuchar. So, yes, you can make your ad, but that ad doesn't answer the very basic fundamental question of why is she here? Why are we going to vote for the echo when the real thing is in the race? Why are we going to go for the person, this person, when the other guy, who clearly means it, has meant it for 40-something years, has created that space in 2016 when Warren wouldn't even get out there to run, and is a true believer through and through, and is understood to be a true believer. You could see the way that the public even regards him, or the Democratic class regards him. They consider him a threat in the way that they act. And the heavy-handedness associated with the way they act gets that across far more than anything that they could potentially say. This video is perfectly fine. I guess the question becomes, does this video answer the fundamental question of why Warren is in this race? I would make the case to say no. Not to mention the things that they're giving her props for are things that somebody else has already cornered the market on. So yes, I suppose they could keep Warren with this notion of persist, but real questions are going to have to be asked if Warren ends up coming in 3rd or 4th place in Nevada. And again, the same thing in South Carolina. It's not like it's going to get better for her in the various states going forward. So the question becomes, why is Warren in this race? And up to this point, I don't necessarily understand her theory of the case in real world, realistic terms. Instead of her getting out the race and backing the guy who she calls her friend and that she was in this kind of peace pact with, she has just, despite not having a path to victory, just slandered and attacked him, calling him sexist, calling him a liar, in this case, calling his supporters or attacking his supporters, the same supporters, mind you, that she would even need to win her seat from the standpoint of the Senate. So, is this the person who you really want to put up against Trump? I would argue no. Is this the person that you trust either on environment, either healthcare, either domestic policy, either Medicare for all? Is this the person that you trust on these issues? And I would again argue no. Is this the person you trust on economics? I would argue no. And again, this is not just me arguing this. You can look at the trends in the polling itself. She doesn't win on any of these issues. So you effectively have a group of women who is throwing money down the toilet by just repeating stuff that don't necessarily fall in line with the way of public perception. Yes, there's some times where you try to pull that narrative back, but the catch becomes whether or not this ad is going to be effective. My argument is this ad is not effective because, again, this ad doesn't answer the very specific question of why Warren is here, especially if the person who's already in this race, that has already solidified that particular support, makes your case better than you do. They can support whoever they want. They can dump their money into whoever they want. All I'm making the point that Warren, is she going to come out and repudiate this super PAC? She needs cash. Is she going to come out and repudiate this super PAC? If she does, I will make a video saying, wow, I was shocked by this, but Warren actually came out and repudiated the super PAC. We'll see. I'm doubtful. Like, share, subscribe.